A white lady? To what extent have there been others? I spent over 3 years thinking about this query as well as the identity of the lady in white. I had no idea what to do, that's all, until the day Mom managed to dislodge the pantry door. That is, to be fair, when we had purchased the home years previously, it needed some work, but we hadn't done any renovations. Mom was informed by the realtor that while we would have a pantry in principle, the previous owners had not even been able to open the door. We never really used the cupboard space, other than a few careless tugs at the knob since there was enough of it, but this was the day when Mom's drinking habit finally got out of control and exceeded the capacity of our fridge and cabinets. She needed a place to stash the remaining alcohol, and she accomplished the seemingly impossible with the willpower of an addict seeking a fix. She had raved that evening about how great it was to have a pantry. She would need to find a way to eliminate the awful cold that was within. I waited until Mom went to sleep in her bedroom before heading to the pantry door. How I knew there would be a mark within is still a mystery to me. There were just the specifics left to find out. I let myself in via the door. Shivering, I opened the door and went inside, relieved to be out of that frigid air from Wheeler. This location was chilly, my goodness. A new twinge of guilt on top of a mound of the stuff already. Sarah, how could she have left him here? The entrance was near a mahogany coat rack, but I was not going to take off my coat, despite my hatred for it. I was so chilly that I was just wearing a thin blouse beneath. After stomping on the carpet to remove the snow, I walked to the front desk and saw an incredibly beautiful lady in white looking up from her job. She gave me a lovely grin. "Mom, how may I assist you?" I spoke out, trying to project confidence in the hopes that it would improve my prospects. "To pick up my father." "I've come here, Chadwick. Vernon?" The woman's name tag was Edith, and she was still smiling, but her sweetness appeared to wane a little. "And you too? I'm his offspring, Geraldine." Edith took out a file by opening a drawer. "Here, it states that Sarah Trevor." "A woman?" put Vernon. I replied, trying not to seem contemptuous. "My sister. This is not how she should have dropped him here." "I just learned about it," Edith murmured. "I'm sorry, but she didn't seem regretful at all. However, your sister has already made a sizable payment to entrust your father to our care. I fear that only she or her spouse will be able to take him out. How about if I gave you money?" I questioned, a hint of desperation in my voice. Of course, I had no money to pay, but just now I was dealing with more serious issues. Edith responded, "You don't understand here. There are established policies, rules, documentation. I can't simply allow anybody into my home and take one of my inhabitants at any time. I have no evidence at all that you are who you claim to be. In an attempt to provide this lady with my ID, I fumbled in the ripped pocket of my coat for my wallet. However, I was missing it when I discovered that Dad was here. I had gone right away and hadn't even considered bringing anything. Can I lost my voice. At least let me see him. He'll know who I am. That's for sure." The remnants of Edith's grin vanished completely, and her once lovely face became awful as well. "I fear Hearn will be unable to provide us with any information at all. What topic are you discussing?" "He will, of course. I'm not going anywhere till." With a hint of impatience, Edith raised a hand to speak out. She started my hand, but as soon as our eyes locked, her demeanor softened. She let out a deep sigh. "All right, fine, but there are several forms that you must complete." She indicated a room that was behind her. "There's an open closet back there. A shelf containing a few clipboards will be present. Take one of them and complete the forms on it." I sighed with relief, finding it hard to believe how fast Edith's mood had turned around. Undoubtedly startling, but not unpleasant. And when I went into the other room and got a clipboard, I thought, if I fill out these paperwork, I'll be able to see. I felt a long, thin needle go into my neck, and all the muscles in my body tightened at once. I stumbled and fell backward, but my arms were immobile, and I was unable to stop myself. With a bang, my skull smacks against the wood as I strike the floor. As I lay there, I realized with horror that I was totally paralyzed. I had complete immobility. I felt Edith's fingers go beneath my armpits from behind. After dragging me across the floor, she violently laid me down. Something was leaking passively from the hole in my neck. Though I didn't know if it was blood or whatever she'd injected me with, my head was pointed at the ceiling, and I heard a small commotion next to me, but I could not turn to see. But then Edith knelt beside me, and with one hand, nails exquisitely polished, she tilted my head to the side. There was a rug bunched on the floor, moved from its place, and an open trap door with a ladder leading down into darkness. And that charming grin reappeared. She crooned, "Geraldine, do you see that cellar? You're going to die down there, and it's all because you're an ugly, tiresome woman, and I don't want to look at you anymore." And with that, she grabbed me by the front of my old ratty coat and hurled me roughly through the hole in the floor. I regained consciousness near the pantry, lying in my sweat. I wasn't sure why I had awoken so suddenly. Perhaps Geraldine had landed on her neck, amused. Such a fate would surely have been preferable to whatever Edith had in store for her. I got to my hands and knees, feeling weak, and looked toward the place where the trapdoor had been hidden, directly under our kitchen table. But it wasn't there anymore, just a flat hardwood surface. I crawled over to it and looked more closely. There was a slight color difference. Some planks of wood were newer than others. There had been something here, but no longer. The sound of Chuck a few feet away, whining at his customary spot on the kitchen floor, tore me from my thoughts. It would be easy, I realized, to remove access to a building cellar, but harder to remove the cellar itself, and I knew, as surely as I knew the color of my own eyes, that if someone were to rip out our kitchen floor, they would find a cellar underneath and a dusty set of bones, perhaps still clad in an old, tattered coat. I knew something else, too, what to do next. I rang the doorbell and waited for a moment, but it wasn't long before the old lady answered, smiling sweetly. "Oh, come in, she said with enthusiasm. Ushering me inside. "Hang your coat there," she said, pointing at a mahogany coat rack in her entrance hall. "Now, I've got hot water on the stove for tea. Let me offer you a cup." I nodded my agreement and followed her into her tidy, spacious home. It was elegant without being showy. The decor was timeless. She gestured to a couch in her living room, and before long she tottered back into the room with 2 steaming mugs of tea. She sat her down on a plush armchair across from me. "It's nice to meet you, Edith," I said. "Well, I just can't imagine why anyone would want to bother with me," she replied. "But regardless, you seem like a very nice young man, and I'm glad to be speaking with you." I grinned and pulled out my phone. "Do you mind if I record this? It'll help our conversation flow more naturally if I'm not taking notes." She hesitated for an almost unnoticeable moment before nodding her assent. "Yes, of course, that's fine, excellent," I said, then started my voice recording app, set my phone down, and began what would prove to be a very short interview. "So as Miss Vance, your daughter, I call her Miss Vance, probably told you, I'm a writer with the high school newspaper, The Forecaster. Yes, we're doing profiles on people in our community who are, getting on in years, but who have made a lot of great contributions in their lifetime that can sometimes go unnoticed or unappreciated. Well, I'm certainly getting on in years," but she paused for a moment as if choosing her words carefully. "But I'm pleased with how I spent them. I'm pleased with what I did. I'm sure you are," I replied. "Now, what your daughter may not have told you is that I have a particular interest in telling your story because you worked at the Halliburton home. I'm sure you've seen that it's been remodeled into a house since then." "Oh yes," she said. "I ran the place, and Jacqueline mentioned that you live there now, which I think is just wonderful. I'm so glad the old bones are still around. It took me a moment, but I eventually realized that Jacqueline had to be Miss Vance," and continued, "No sense in prolonging anything. So my first question, did you ever meet anyone angry that their family member had been put in hospice care? Maybe they would have come back one night saying that they didn't approve, and they wanted this person, their father, let's say, to be given back to them. Believe me when I tell you that a smile has never fallen off of a human head so fast." She spoke haltingly. Why on earth would your first question be? Because the ghost of Vernon Chadwick's daughter, Geraldine, appeared to me and told me all about it, I said, eager to press my interrogation forward. She's still under our kitchen. You know, I suppose the ghost bit wasn't exactly true, but it had the intended effect. Edith was completely stunned. I wish you could have seen her face. Okay, so pass on question 1, then I went on. Next question. When you went alive Dorothy, the woman who was staying in what's now our guest room, how hard was it to clean up all the blood after? I only asked because she didn't show me that part. I mean, I saw the razors and the bit with the intestines, but I can't imagine it would have been very fun cleaning up. I'm going to be sick, Edith stammered. Okay, but before you go throw up or whatever, one more question. Are you worried about what's going to happen when you die? By this point, Edith had turned as white as the medical gown she once wore. Are you threatening me? Oh, no, actually, I said, I mean, I'm not a psychopath. So I'm not going to hurt a sweet old lady. Thank you for the tea, by the way, I said, holding up my mug before taking a sip. I was having more fun than I had expected. Maybe I was wrong. And there's a bit of psychopath in all of us. I don't even want to bring you to any kind of earthly justice, given that it sounds like a lot of trouble, and no offense. But you're probably not going to last much longer anyway, I continued. I'm just wondering, like, when you die, you know you're going to have to answer to them, right? Who, Edith began. The people you unalived at Halliburton home? I said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. They're going to be waiting for you. Surely you didn't expect to face no consequence. You're a nasty liar, Edith said, clearly shaken. But all pretense of sweetness was now absent. I wondered how this venomous being before me had ever been capable of playing the kindly old woman. I shook my head. How else would I know this? Edith, ask yourself. Ask yourself. Is there any other way, she said, staring at her lap. And I stood. I should go, I said. Before you try and stick a needle in my neck, I'll write a nice article about you, though. I promised. Her eyes flickered over to my phone, still recording the conversation. As I said, I'm not here to get you in trouble. I'm here to take away your peace. My peace. Yes, I said, you didn't just unalive people, Edith. You tortured them, maimed them. Many of them spent their final days terrified of the night you'd walk through their door. I don't know why you did it, but I know how the people you did it to felt. And I think it's only right that in your final days you feel the same way. I paused for a moment. Before concluding, they agree Edith died only 6 months later. I went to the funeral.